Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Nothing invites more enemies than a man who proves he doesn't need any. Think about it. In a world where survival has always depended on the tribe, the man who walks alone is automatically seen as a threat. Psychology even backs it up. Studies show humans are wired to distrust what they can't predict. And Sigma males? They are the ultimate glitch in that system. They don't follow scripts, they don't beg for approval, and worst of all, they don't care if you like them or not. That's exactly why people hate them. Hate with a passion. The kind of hate that's quiet in public but loud in secret conversations. It's the kind of resentment that doesn't need a reason, only an excuse. And the funniest part? Half the time, Sigma males don't even notice it. They'll be sipping coffee in silence while entire groups are losing sleep over their existence. Today we're peeling back the layers and exposing the 12 brutally honest reasons people can't stand Sigma males. And trust me, it's not the obvious, they're mysterious nonsense you've heard before. This is deeper, darker, and a little too real. Number 1. They make being liked irrelevant. Most people spend their lives chasing approval. They bend their personalities to fit in, soften their edges so they won't offend, and water down their truth so they can be liked. Being liked is treated like survival. It's the reason people say yes when they mean no, the reason they laugh at jokes they don't find funny, and the reason they tolerate things they secretly hate. Society rewards likability, so most people play the game. But Sigma males don't. And that's exactly why people resent them. A Sigma male operates on a completely different wavelength. He doesn't adjust his behavior just to make others comfortable. He doesn't spend hours wondering what people think of him. And he doesn't lose sleep over whether he's coming across the right way. For him, being liked is irrelevant. It's not that he wants to be disliked, he simply doesn't care enough to trade authenticity for approval. That indifference unnerves people because it makes their own approval-seeking look desperate and small. What really stings is that Sigma males often succeed in spite of, or even because of, this mindset. While others are busy polishing their image, networking tirelessly, or keeping up appearances, the Sigma male is focused on results, craft, or his personal code. And somehow that earns him respect without him even asking for it. People hate that. They hate seeing someone skip the steps they thought were necessary. They hate realizing that maybe being liked has been a trap all along. The truth is, when someone can operate without the oxygen of approval, they become untouchable. They can't be manipulated by flattery. They can't be controlled by social pressure. They can't be cornered with guilt. That kind of freedom is dangerous to a world built on conformity. It's why Sigma males attract quiet hostility. They embody a reality most people don't want to face, that likability is overrated, and being liked isn't proof of strength. It's often proof of dependence. That's the real reason people hate them. Not because they're cold, not because they're rude, but because they live as if popularity is meaningless. And deep down, everyone knows they're right. Number 2, they don't need validation, which exposes who does. Validation is one of the strongest currencies in human interaction. People live for it. They measure their worth through likes on social media, compliments from friends, nods from bosses, or approval from family. Without validation, most feel invisible, small, and uncertain. They need to be told they're enough, and if the applause stops, so does their confidence. This dependence is so normal that people don't even notice it, until they come across someone who doesn't play by those rules. That's where Sigma males trigger hatred. A Sigma male doesn't crave validation. He can do something excellent and never announce it. He can make a decision without waiting for anyone's reassurance. He can walk into a room and not care whether people notice him. This quiet indifference unsettles people because it shines a spotlight on how much they rely on external approval. Standing next to someone who doesn't need validation makes their own hunger for it look desperate. And that stings. What makes it worse is how powerful this indifference makes the Sigma male. He cannot be manipulated through praise. He cannot be bribed with attention. He cannot be controlled by the threat of being disliked. He moves outside the emotional economy most people are enslaved to, and that freedom creates an imbalance. Others feel powerless around him because their usual tricks, flattery, guilt, criticism, bounce off like bullets hitting steel. Hatred grows in that gap. People resent him for not clapping when they expect it. They resent him for not shrinking when criticized. They resent him for not needing the very things they've built their entire identity around. His existence becomes a mirror, and mirrors are uncomfortable when they expose truths we'd rather ignore. That's why the Sigma male often attracts silent enemies. It's not because he insulted anyone or picked a fight. It's because his independence exposes a weakness others would rather keep hidden, their dependence on validation. And instead of facing that truth, they project their frustration onto him. Number 3, they possess power without performing it. Power is addictive, and most people can't resist showing it off. They flex titles, flaunt money, drop names, and make sure everyone in the room knows where they stand. Their influence depends on display. If they stop performing it, they fear people will forget they have it. That's why so many leaders, bosses, or even ordinary people exaggerate their status, because their authority doesn't feel real unless it's constantly broadcasted. Sigma males flip that entire script. They hold power without putting it on parade. They don't need to flash credentials, dominate conversations, or remind people of their importance. Their presence alone carries weight. And that quiet power feels unfair to everyone else who spends energy maintaining an image. It's infuriating because people don't understand why the Sigma commands respect. He doesn't try to look impressive, yet people pay attention when he speaks. He doesn't push to be noticed, yet somehow he can change the mood of a room without saying a word. Others have to hustle for recognition. He earns it by simply existing in his lane. That kind of natural authority makes people insecure, because it highlights how much of their own influence is propped up by effort and noise. The real sting comes from how efficient Sigma power is. A loud, performative person has to constantly maintain the act. But the Sigma, his power is sustainable. He doesn't chase attention, so he doesn't lose energy keeping it. And that makes him more dangerous, because he's not drained by performance. He's free to focus on results, moves, and strategies that actually matter. This is why people hate him. He makes their effort look theatrical. He shows, without trying, that true power doesn't need applause to be real. He's proof that the loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. Often it's the one who says the least, but carries an undeniable presence. That quiet authority unsettles people. It strips the glitter off their performance and exposes the insecurity beneath it. And instead of admitting the truth, that their power is fragile, they direct their resentment toward the Sigma who doesn't even care to compete. Number 4, they're immune to guilt tripping. Guilt is one of the oldest tricks in the book. Society runs on it. Parents use it to control children. Friends use it to force loyalty. Partners use it to win arguments. Even entire cultures are built around guilt. The idea that you owe something to everyone all the time. Most people fall in line because they don't want to be seen as selfish, cold, or ungrateful. That fear keeps them tied to obligations they never agreed to, and sacrifices they never wanted to make. But Sigma males are immune to guilt tripping. They can smell emotional blackmail the moment it enters the room. If someone tries to corner them with lines like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You owe me this much," they don't flinch. Instead of taking the bait, they cut through it with clarity. If they choose to help, it's on their own terms, not because someone weaponized guilt against them. This refusal terrifies manipulators because guilt is their strongest weapon. Most people bend under its weight. They'll cancel their own plans, betray their own boundaries, or drain themselves dry just to escape being labeled ungrateful. But the Sigma male doesn't hand over that power. He knows that giving in to guilt only feeds the manipulator, and so he starves the trap by refusing to play. That's why people hate him. They can't control him with the same strings that work on everyone else. He doesn't feel pressured to attend every event, respond to every call, or honor every favor. His loyalty is chosen, not demanded. And while that makes him free, it makes others furious. Because once you realize guilt doesn't control him, you start realizing it probably shouldn't control you either. That exposure is uncomfortable. The bitter truth is this: manipulators don't hate Sigma males because they're cruel. They hate them because they're uncatchable. They stand as living proof that guilt only works on those who allow it. And once that illusion cracks, the whole system of silent control falls apart. Number 5. They refuse to explain themselves. Most people are trained to explain themselves. Every choice, every move, every opinion usually comes with a justification attached. They feel the need to soften the blow, defend their reasoning, or seek approval before taking action. It's a way of making sure they don't upset anyone, and it keeps them in the good graces of the group. For most, explanations are less about clarity and more about survival. Sigma males don't play that game. They make decisions based on instinct, principle, or calculation, and they don't feel the need to explain why. If they walk away from a situation, they don't send an essay about their reasons. If they refuse an offer, they don't soften the rejection with excuses. And if they pursue something unexpected, they don't ask for permission or validation. To them, explaining isn't necessary because they're at peace with their choices. This infuriates people. To those who depend on validation, silence feels like arrogance. They interpret the lack of explanation as disrespect, as if the Sigma owes them a window into his mind. The truth is, the Sigma isn't trying to be superior. He just doesn't outsource his decisions to public opinion. His compass is internal, not social. What really drives people crazy is that this refusal takes away their leverage. Explanations give others room to argue, debate, or guilt trip. Without them, there's nothing to push against. The Sigma's silence becomes a wall, clean, firm, and impenetrable. And most people hate walls because they block their influence. It also exposes how much people fear being misunderstood. They spend their lives trying to prove they're not a bad person or meant well. Sigma males don't fear being misread because they know people will project whatever story they want anyway. That indifference is unsettling. It highlights how fragile everyone else's identity is compared to someone who doesn't care about outside judgment. That's why resentment builds. It's not about the decision itself. It's about the Sigma's calm refusal to explain it. People hate what they can't control, and nothing is harder to control than someone who doesn't think he owes you a reason. Number 6. They reveal people's fake confidence. Confidence is one of the most performed traits in the modern world. People are told to fake it till you make it, so they do. They puff their chest, raise their voice, exaggerate their stories, and wear confidence like a costume. On the surface, it works. Most can fool casual observers into believing they're self-assured. But the cracks always show when someone with real, unforced confidence enters the room. That's where Sigma males become a problem. Sigma males don't perform confidence. They don't need to inflate their presence or broadcast their worth. Their calmness in their own skin says more than any speech or flex could. It's not showmanship, it's stability. They're not trying to convince anyone they belong, they simply exist as if they already do. That quiet self-possession creates a brutal contrast against the fragile, performative confidence most others rely on. This is why people resent them. Next to a Sigma, the rehearsed bravado of others looks shaky and hollow. The exaggerated gestures, the forced laughter, the loud claims of success, they suddenly feel transparent. No one likes being reminded that their mask is obvious, and a Sigma's natural ease exposes it without him even trying. The resentment grows deeper because fake confidence depends on the crowd. It only survives as long as others buy into it. But when a Sigma male is present, the crowd's attention often shifts without explanation. People notice the calm one more than the loud one, the composed one more than the dramatic one. And that silent shift destroys the illusion of dominance the performer worked so hard to build. What makes it worse is that the Sigma rarely competes. He isn't interested in stealing the spotlight or embarrassing anyone. His confidence isn't a strategy, it's just who he is. And that effortless quality cuts sharper than any deliberate display. It shows that confidence isn't about volume or performance, but about being unshaken whether you're noticed or ignored. That's why people hate him. Because his very presence makes it obvious who is secure and who is only pretending. And once the illusion cracks, no amount of noise can glue it back together. Number 7. They can leave without burning bridges and still not return. Most people believe that relationships end with noise, arguments, accusations, or dramatic exits. That way at least everyone feels the ending was earned. There's closure, even if it's messy. But Sigma males don't play by that rule. When they decide to leave, they don't slam doors or create a scene. They exit quietly, without ceremony, without explanation, without theatrics. On the surface, it looks respectful. No fights, no harsh words, no bridges burned. Yet underneath that calmness lies the very reason people grow to hate them. They never look back. For most, leaving quietly is a temporary thing. It suggests there might still be a way back, a chance to reconnect. But when a Sigma male disappears, it's not a pause, it's a permanent choice. He doesn't circle back to check in, doesn't test the waters to see if things changed, doesn't reopen closed chapters. That finality is brutal because it makes people feel disposable. It forces them to face the reality that his connection was never built on neediness or dependency. It was optional. And once the option no longer served him, he withdrew without regret. This stings far more than anger ever could. Anger at least shows investment. Drama at least shows emotion. But silence shows detachment. And detachment is a far colder blade. It says, I don't need this, I don't need you, and I can live perfectly fine without the weight of explanation. That kind of exit doesn't just end a relationship. It invalidates the other person's importance in it. What makes it worse is that Sigma males leave no mess behind. No gossip, no smear campaigns, no bitterness. They just vanish. That quiet dignity makes others look childish for craving drama. It also leaves no chance for reconciliation because there's nothing to rebuild. People are left wrestling with questions they'll never get answers to, and that unfinished business breeds long-term resentment. In the end, it isn't the leaving that creates hate, it's the indifference. Most people can forgive anger. What they can't forgive is being treated as though they never mattered enough for an explanation. And that's exactly why the Sigma's quiet exit leaves such a loud wound. Number 8, they don't applaud what they don't respect. Most people hand out praise like candy. They clap politely at mediocrity, compliment things they don't really admire, and exaggerate approval just to keep the peace. It's not always malicious. Society trains us to cushion egos because everyone is fragile. But this habit creates an environment where people expect recognition even when they haven't earned it. And when that recognition doesn't come, it feels like an insult. This is exactly where Sigma males clash with the world. A Sigma male does not applaud what he doesn't respect. He doesn't hand out false validation, and he doesn't play along with the social ritual of pretending everything is great. If he doesn't find something impressive, he stays quiet. Not in a cruel way, but in a matter-of-fact way. To him, praise only has value if it's genuine. If everyone gets claps regardless of effort, the applause becomes meaningless. So he withholds it until it's truly deserved. This restraint drives people mad. When others are showered with compliments but the Sigma remains unmoved, they feel exposed. It's as if his silence calls out what everyone else is too polite to admit, that their achievement wasn't that impressive. Suddenly the polite illusion breaks, and people realize not everyone is fooled. That realization creates resentment. The deeper issue is that Sigmas redefine the standard of recognition. They don't praise because it's expected, they praise because it's earned. This makes their approval rare and, ironically, more valuable. But it also makes people uncomfortable, because it strips away the safety net of guaranteed applause. Around a Sigma male, you can't coast on mediocrity. You either deliver something real, or you get nothing. The silence hurts more than criticism. Criticism can be dismissed as jealousy or misunderstanding. But silence is undeniable. It says, I see you, but I'm not impressed. And most people would rather be criticized than ignored because at least criticism proves they had an impact. That's why this trait breeds hatred. Sigma males don't hand out recognition like everyone else, so when they finally do, it carries weight. But until then, their refusal to play along feels like rejection, and rejection cuts deeper when it comes without words. Number 9. They can read people too well. Most people live with masks. They exaggerate their confidence, soften their flaws, hide insecurities, and polish their stories so they'll be more acceptable to others. It's not always malicious. It's survival. Life runs smoother when people can cover their weaknesses and control how others see them. But Sigma males disrupt this balance because they see through those layers almost instantly. They have a sharp, almost unsettling ability to read people, and that talent often creates more enemies than friends. A Sigma doesn't need hours of conversation to understand someone. Small cues, the tone of voice, the way eyes shift, the timing of a smile, reveal more to him than words do. Where most people take people at face value, he notices the gaps, the inconsistencies, and the signals that betray the truth. Lies sound louder, insecurities stand out, and hidden motives feel obvious to him. He doesn't always call them out, but the awareness shows in his silence, and that alone can make people deeply uncomfortable. Being around someone who can read you, this clearly feels like standing under a bright spotlight. Even if the Sigma says nothing, people feel exposed. Their carefully constructed image doesn't hold up, and that realization can trigger defensiveness, embarrassment, or outright hostility. People hate feeling transparent, and they hate even more the person who makes them feel that way without effort. What makes it worse is that Sigmas rarely exploit this ability for show. They don't use it to humiliate or embarrass people in public. They simply adjust their behavior, withdraw, or treat the person according to what they see beneath the surface. That quiet acknowledgement hits harder than confrontation because it's subtle but undeniable. You just know they see through you. Hatred grows because people can't fake confidence, charm, or power around a Sigma. He can spot the performance immediately, and that forces others to confront an uncomfortable truth. Their mask is obvious. Most would rather turn that discomfort into resentment than face the weakness being exposed. This is why Sigma males often carry an aura of quiet intimidation. It's not that they're loud or aggressive, it's that being in their presence feels like standing in front of someone who already knows your secrets, even the ones you haven't admitted to yourself. And that's a hard thing to forgive. Number 10, they're masters of disappearing value. When most people leave, the world adjusts. Their absence might sting at first, but others quickly fill the space they once occupied. Life moves on. But when a Sigma male steps away, something different happens. He doesn't just leave. He takes his value with him, and the gap he leaves behind feels heavier than expected. It's only in his absence that people realize how much they leaned on him, and by then it's too late. Sigma males often give quietly. They may not advertise their contributions, but they're the ones solving problems behind the scenes, providing stability without fanfare, or offering insight others didn't even know they depended on. Because they don't beg for attention, people take their presence for granted. They assume he'll always be there, until he isn't. That's when the silence starts to echo. Tasks don't get done, conversations lose depth, and the group feels less grounded. The invisible weight he carried suddenly becomes clear. The irony is that Sigma males rarely leave with malice. They don't storm out or try to prove a point. They withdraw simply because it's time, or because they no longer see value in staying. But the impact of that quiet exit is brutal. People who overlooked him or dismissed his worth suddenly feel exposed. They relied on him more than they admitted, and now that reliance is gone. This realization doesn't usually lead to gratitude. It leads to resentment. Instead of admitting, "I underestimated his importance," people flip the script. How dare he leave? Hatred becomes easier to handle than regret. By resenting him, they avoid confronting their own blindness. The deeper truth is that Sigma males create value by not demanding recognition. That's why the loss feels so sharp, because what he gave was woven seamlessly into the fabric of everyday life. You only see the missing threads when the whole cloth begins to unravel, and that's why people hate him after he's gone. Not because he wronged them, but because his absence forces them to face a brutal truth. He mattered far more than they ever admitted when he was there. That kind of regret cuts deep, and hate becomes the shield to hide it. Number 11. They're proof that freedom is possible. Freedom is one of those ideas everyone praises out loud but secretly fears in practice. People talk about independence, self-reliance, and being their own person. But most are chained by invisible threads, jobs they hate but can't leave, relationships they outgrew but can't walk away from, approval they crave but can't stop chasing. The thought of stepping outside all of that is terrifying, so they settle for comfort and call it freedom. Sigma males disrupt that illusion. They embody the life most secretly dream about but don't have the courage to live. They don't shape themselves to fit the system. They don't mold their choices to please the crowd. And they don't need constant approval to feel secure. Their version of freedom is raw and inconvenient because it exposes how trapped everyone else really is. It's one thing to suspect you're not free. It's another to stand next to someone who proves it. This is why people hate them. Not because the Sigma forces his lifestyle on others, but because his very existence shines a light on the cages people have locked themselves into. He doesn't boast about being free, he just lives it. And that silent example hurts more than any lecture. It whispers, you could live like this too, if you weren't so afraid. That's the message people can't stand. The resentment grows deeper when people realize freedom isn't about money, power, or status, it's about detachment. The Sigma's indifference to control, validation, or belonging is what makes him untouchable. He can't be pressured by trends. He can't be manipulated by fear of rejection. He can't be bought with cheap rewards. That kind of independence isn't just rare, it's threatening. It dismantles the excuses others hide behind. So instead of confronting their fear, people turn it outward. They label him arrogant, antisocial, or strange, anything to dismiss what he represents. Because admitting the truth, that he's living the freedom they secretly crave, would mean facing their own chains. At the core, hatred of Sigma males is less about who they are and more about what they reveal. They are living proof that freedom is possible. And nothing breeds more resentment than watching someone else live the life you're too afraid to claim. Number 12, they don't get hooked by status symbols. Status symbols are the oxygen of modern society. People use them to broadcast success, to prove their worth without having to say a word. The expensive car, the designer logo, the job title, the trendy gadget, all of it serves one purpose, to signal value to others. For most, these symbols become the shortcut to identity. They don't just own them, they are them. And because of that, anyone who refuses to play the same game becomes a threat. Sigma males don't get hooked by status symbols. They might own nice things, but they don't wear them as proof of existence. A title doesn't define them, a car doesn't elevate them, a trend doesn't validate them. Their sense of worth comes from within, not from what can be displayed or bought. This detachment makes people furious because it exposes how fragile their own self-image really is. Imagine spending years climbing ladders, saving for luxuries, chasing promotions just to signal that you've made it, and then standing next to someone who commands equal or greater respect without any of it. That comparison burns. It makes all the effort, debt, and sacrifices feel cheap. People resent Sigma males because they reveal that the entire chase for symbols is optional, and nobody wants to admit they've been running on a treadmill that goes nowhere. What makes the sting worse is how free the Sigma looks without those hooks. He can walk into a room without labels pinned to him and still draw attention. He can succeed without the costume of prestige. And when trends fade or titles lose meaning, he doesn't crumble, because he was never defined by them in the first place. Others, however, are left scrambling to replace one symbol with another, always terrified of being invisible without them. That's why this trait attracts hate. People can accept being out-earned or outranked, but being outshone by someone who doesn't even play the game feels unbearable. Sigma males expose the hollowness of the scoreboard society worships, and instead of admitting the emptiness of that chase, people take the easier path. They direct their bitterness at the one man who refuses to wear chains disguised as trophies. In the end, the hatred for Sigma males has little to do with them as individuals, and everything to do with the mirrors they hold up to the world. They don't beg for applause, they don't explain their choices, and they don't decorate themselves with symbols to prove they exist. Instead, they move quietly, exposing how fragile the foundations of most people's lives really are. Every trait that makes them powerful, comfort in solitude, immunity to manipulation, indifference to validation, is exactly what unsettles those who can't imagine surviving without these crutches. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. People don't hate Sigma males because they're cruel, arrogant, or mysterious. They hate them because they reveal what's missing in themselves. They strip away illusions of confidence, freedom, and strength, leaving others face to face with their own dependence. That's not easy to forgive, and it's rarely forgotten. But here's the twist. Sigma males don't need the world's approval, and they don't crumble under its hatred either. That's why the resentment only grows stronger. You can dismiss them, envy them, even try to vilify them, but you can't ignore them. They're proof that another way of living exists, and for many, that truth cuts deeper than any insult ever could. So the next time you see hatred directed toward a Sigma male, understand it for what it really is, not a reflection of his flaws, but a confession of everyone else's fears. If this breakdown gave you a new lens on why Sigma males spark so much resentment, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join this community where we cut through illusions and speak the truths most people avoid. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I want to hear where you stand on this. And if you know someone who needs this perspective, share it with them. Don't forget to like the video too. It helps push these ideas further out into the world. Stay tuned, because we're just scratching the surface.